All news report that the doors be open. I wouldn't know. I can assure you. Alors, statements by members. Déclaration de député, l'honorable député de Repentigny.
The honourable member for Repentigny. We're told, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister of Heritage is speaking about giant web-based companies, and that's great. She said that they would have to respect our cultural policies and better spread the benefits of their business model. And that's all in well and good, but the reality is that her government's budget is perpetuating the privileges granted to such companies. The reality is that her government is still refusing to ask Netflix to collect sales tax. In Quebec, we have a different approach. Quebecers are opposed to the Netflix privilege on sales taxes. Consequently, all the parties of Quebec's National Assembly are asking that Netflix collect sales tax. The result? Now, Netflix will have to collect Quebec's sales tax. That is a clear message. That is respecting the public. That is what we call walking the talk. From words to action. From words to action. I invite the government to learn from this.
The honourable member for Niagara Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Niagara Centre, on March 29th, we will celebrate the opening of the Welland Canal at Lock 8 in the city of Port Colborne with the presentation of a top hat to the captain of the first downbound ship. The top hat is an homage to William Hamilton Merritt, builder of the canal in 1829. The people of Niagara Centre, Mr. Speaker, and its visitors from around the world are proud of this engineering marvel, which lifts ships 320 feet up or down the Niagara Escarpment between Great Lakes, Ontario, as well as Erie. Last year, the Seaway set a record of 298 days of navigation. The economic impact is $36 billion, and 27,000 jobs in Canada and the United States depend on this international trade corridor. Mr. Speaker, whether it is the Mariner service the Sunday before the big day, or visitors to the popular Niagara South Coast museums, the citizens of Niagara Centre keep the spirit and history of our Welland Canal alive.
The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize a former classmate of mine and constituent. Mr. Joe Hill was just elected President of Beef Farmers of Ontario. He and his family live just outside of Fergus and Elora in Wellington County. They have been raising beef cattle for generations. In fact, I remember when we both worked on beef farms when we were at Fergus High School, him on his father's farm and me on the neighbours. Ontario is Canada's second largest beef-producing province, and Beef Farmers of Ontario represents the province's 19,000 beef farmers. Once again, congratulations and best wishes to Joe Hill as he begins his term as president. I look forward to working with him to ensure that Ontario's beef farmers are well represented here on Parliament Hill.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, the issue of infrastructure is vital for the country's economy and for the region of the Lower Laurentians, where the flow of road traffic urgently needs real improvement. Our government has committed to supporting and developing infrastructures for road transportation and public transportation. The government of Quebec revealed yesterday in its budget that Highway 19 is being targeted for construction projects and that funds have been earmarked for dedicated lanes on Highway 15. For 47 years, the citizens of the Laurentians have been waiting for these urgently needed improvements, and I'm delighted by this commitment. A seminar on traffic congestion will be held in our region on April 23rd, and it will be an exceptional opportunity for all levels of government to work together. I will be there to represent my citizens and the Government of Canada. I can assure you that these citizens will be paying close attention to these projects. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, in Saudi Arabia, freedom of expression and freedom of assembly is severely repressed. For 5 years, a young Saudi blogger, Raouf Badawi, is unfortunately the poster child for this oppression. He has been whipped and is still in prison. even though he just won a significant international prize for bravery in journalism. For 5 years, his wife, Ansar Haidar, and their 3 children have been working hard to ensure that this husband and father finds his freedom. To intensify pressure on Saudi Arabia and bring a certain protection to Raif Badawi, his wife asks that he become an honorary Canadian citizen. She's made the request to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has promised to act. It is now time to act. Will the Prime Minister support making Raif Badawi an honorary Canadian citizen?
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Miramichi, Grand Lake.
Today to highlight the achievement of Miramichi's own Laura Dickinson. Laura, who is just 18 years old, recently competed in the Pan American Cross Country Cup in El Salvador, where she brought home silver in the 6-kilometer race. She also helped Team Canada's junior women secure the top spot to win a gold medal. This wasn't the first Pan American game brought home by Laura, and she has also broken many provincial track records. With such a bright future ahead of her, Laura has been given a full scholarship to Syracuse University. I am sure Laura will continue to be a shining star and make Canada and the Miramichi proud. Congratulations, Laura, and we wish you continued success. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to recognize CTV Saskatoon's 2017 Citizen of the Year, Mr. Hugo Alvarado. Hugo is an artist extraordinaire. He arrived in Saskatoon more than 4 decades ago from Chile with a little more than a pair of shorts and $5 to his name. Now he's a very successful artist and also is co-founder of Artists Against Hunger. Hugo and his fellow artists have contributed thousands of dollars through their charitable organization. Hugo is a well-known teacher of art. In fact, my wife Anne was one of his students. He is a personal friend, and his art hangs in our house. A reception to honor Hugo Alvarado as Saskatoon Citizen of the Year will be held tomorrow in my city.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great pride I recognize a truly inspiring Canadian today from Meadowville in my riding. During a hockey game, Dominic Cozzolino was badly injured and bravely endured months of surgery and rehabilitation when he was just 14 years old. He aspired to be a hockey player and recalled overhearing a doctor say he'll be lucky to ever play again. Dominic defied that doctor's comment. He did play again, and he fought back his injuries with strength and determination. Not only did he return to the ice, but he represented Canada in the 2018 Paralympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang. Dom and his team won silver. Mr. Speaker, I ask the House to join me in congratulating Dominic Cozzolino in not only his remarkable achievements on the ice and representing Canada, but for being an incredible inspiration for all Canadians. Dominic, well done.
Well done. The Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have proudly watched the Olympic and Paralympic athletes represent Canada at the Olympic Games in South Korea. While I congratulate all competitors, especially those from PEI, I do want to single out Mark Arens, who stood on the podium 6 times. Mark lived on a farm in the next community to mine, and I remember vividly the day word spread about the 7-year-old losing his arm to a grain auger. His family, his parents, and he accepted the challenges before him. And Mark insisted on learning all life skills that came with being one-handed. Sport became his therapy, the biathlon shooting range his meditation. The results: individual gold, individual silver, 3 bronze, and 1 mixed relay silver. Mark Arens now holds the record for the most medals won by a Canadian in a single Paralympic Winter Games. Being selected as Canada's flag bearer for the closing ceremony added to the honour. Mark, you are an inspiration. Congratulations.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Canada's crime index rises first time in 12 years, lifted by spike in Alberta. Landowners are free prey. Elderly man beaten, robbed on rural Rocky Mountain House property. Mr. Speaker, headlines like these are now commonplace as more and more Albertans are finding themselves victims of rural crime. Recently, a 79-year-old man was beaten and robbed by 3 assailants. He was unable to walk for 5 days after these cowards punched him in the face and kicked him. 79 years old. Hard-working, law-abiding citizens are continually victimized because we have a justice system that fails them every single day. And this Liberal government has not introduced a single piece of legislation that addresses crime. There are judicial vacancies and a bottleneck in Crown Prosecution's offices. Criminals are set free because the Liberal government has failed Canadians. The catch-and-release system of justice is simply not working, Mr. Speaker. My constituents have had enough. Mr. Speaker, do we need to wait until someone is beaten to death on their own property before the Liberals will take the issue of rural crime seriously? What's it going to take?
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to congratulate the Association of BC Land Surveyors on the success of their 113th AGM under the chairmanship of Mr. Brian Brown. 21 years ago, I became a proud member of this profession under the leadership of Mr. Hans Strolson and the mentorship of Mr. David Harris. In the words of Surveyor General of BC, Mr. Mike Thompson, quote, BC land surveyors continue to be critical in the growth and development of British Columbia, providing fundamental support to the economic and social fabric of the province through the diligent preparation of the quality surveys, unquote. I'm proud to be part of this honourable profession. Please join me in welcoming all newly commissioned BC land surveyors and the incoming president, Mr. Roger Galliwau, along with his board of management. Thank you.
The honourable member for Bona Vista, Burin Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, it is a proud time in Newfoundland and Labrador. It gives me tremendous pride to stand in the House today to recognize an honoured former member, a true advocate for the people, and now Newfoundland and Labrador newest and first female Lieutenant Governor, the Honourable Judy Foote. I would like to thank our Prime Minister and convey the gratitude of our entire province for making this marvellous decision. As the Queen's representative in Newfoundland and Labrador, I am positive Judy will bring the same professionalism and passion she brought forth in her political life. I have no doubt she will serve the Government House with respect and expertise it requires, all while being close to home and still spending time with her family. I would like to offer my heartfelt congratulations and thank you to the outgoing Lieutenant Governor, the Honourable Frank Fagan. His honour served the Newfoundland and Labrador people with grace and distinction during the past 5 years and is the pride of the entire province. Mr. Speaker, as the member for Bona Vista, Burin Trinity, Newfoundland and Labrador congratulates the Honourable Judy Foote. We look forward.
The honourable member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
After another cold winter, Easter and the signs of spring are upon us once again. During Easter, Christians celebrate the sacrifice of our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ, as the demonstration of God's immense love for mankind. Like the Passover lamb, we remember that Jesus died in our place. The good news that Christ died for the sins of the world, was buried and rose again, is the foundation of the Christian faith, making Easter one of our most important celebrations. As a Christian in Canada, I know I am blessed to live in a country where I can live my faith in peace and freedom. It is my prayer that Christians around the world will be able to worship and celebrate this holiday free from violence and terrorism. Mr. Speaker, from my family to yours, I wish you and all members in this House a happy Easter.
That is returned. The honourable member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, on International Women's Day, I invited my constituents to nominate a woman who inspires them. I stand today to recognize one of those exceptional women. Samar Hamadi, who was born in Lebanon, is a computer science graduate from York University. With her husband, she raised 2 engineers and a journalist. She's a co-founder of Women for a Prosperous Community, who raised $30,000 for Mississauga's Credit Valley Hospital. Every year, she provides space, mentorship, and support to 200 young volunteers. They train to perform at Karasaga, Mississauga's cultural festival. The group has become one of the most popular attractions and won many awards. Summer is always seen serving others, youth, refugees, and those who need help. Her selfless, loving spirit and beautiful singing voice lifts us all. Summer, thank you for inspiring us and for making our community better. Thank you also to your husband, Joe, and your kids, Adonis, Rami, and...
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Who could still doubt young people's passion, engagement, and ability to mobilize, especially young women and girls? In Quebec, we remember the impact of Martine Desjardins, one of the spokespeople of the student movement. Last week, we saw a new demonstration of young women's impressive ability to act, to not only lead the battle, but be eloquent while doing so. 800,000 people marched to reinforce gun control in the United States. One of the most moving speeches was given by Emma Gonzalez, who, at just 18 years old, found the words and used her silent pauses to talk about her grief and the necessity of protecting students. How could we also not recall Autumn Pelletier, 13 years old, a young Anishinaabe who spoke before the UN General Assembly to ask, with great poise, that water be treated as a person, with all the rights that go with this status, in order to stop water pollution. To all young women and girls who are listening, don't hesitate to speak. Don't hesitate to demand accountability. You're inspiring no matter what you're fighting for.
Mr. Speaker, April 2nd, World Autism Awareness Day will mark 20 years since my son Jaden's diagnosis. Helen Keller once said, "Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood." These words are very powerful for me. For example, 2 years ago, Jaden and I had a great day speaking to 15,000 kids at We Day in Saskatoon. Our flight home was delayed, and suddenly Jaden got really sad. Tears streamed down his cheeks. We found a quiet place at an empty gate, and I just held him, my 20-year-old son, for half an hour until he felt better. I reflect a lot on what I learned from Jaden, that though he struggles to articulate why he feels what he feels, he expresses how he feels very openly and clearly, without words. That for Jaden, much more important than the words I speak is the simple fact that I am there. The life we live is never exactly the life we expected, but the unexpected life, that is where the real learning takes place.
It's always good to have Jaden here. The honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. March is Juvenile Arthritis Month, a disease that affects more than 26,000 children and teens in Canada. 10-year-old Aiden Soares was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis in 2014. A student in my riding, Aiden is unstoppable in his campaign to spread awareness of childhood arthritis and fundraise for a cure. Despite the odds, he earned his first black belt in Taekwondo last year. I joined Aiden on Canada Day as he broke 150 boards as part of his fundraising efforts. He wants to show others that you should never give up on your dreams and that a disease should never define you. Since April 2016, Aiden has been arthritis-free. He continues to raise awareness of childhood arthritis and has become an ambassador for the Arthritis Society. Aiden's message is simple: arthritis hurts, but you can never give up. Keep your dreams, because they can come true.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we're starting to understand why the Liberals are going to such great lengths to cover up their disastrous trip to India. The Liberal member for Brampton East took a job with a construction company after getting elected. Now we've learned that his corporate boss was invited along on the Prime Minister's trip. Now, he was there for one purpose, to drum up new business. Now, of course, new business for the company means more money on the side for the Liberal MP. Now, the member for Brampton East blames the Prime Minister's office. The Prime Minister blames the Liberal member for Brampton East. Who's telling the truth?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on our trip to India, we signed agreements worth more than $1 billion of bilateral investment between Canada and India. We led to the creation of close to 6,000 new jobs in Canada from our initiatives. We met with a broad range of leaders in the cultural industry, in business. We're continuing to deepen the connections and the friendship between Canada and India, an important international partner.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Also there to help a corporate boss of a Liberal member of Parliament to sign contracts for his private company, benefiting that Liberal member. That is completely unethical. Est-ce que le Premier ministre va faire...
Can the Prime Minister do the one thing that he must do? That is to refer the affair to the Ethics Commissioner. The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's so disappointing to see that the opposition still cannot see how important the relationship between Canada and India is so important. We have growing ties. We have a growing economy that will help the middle class in Canada. We have more than $1 billion in contracts in India, which will lead to the creation of more than 5,000 new high-quality jobs for Canadians. These investments will enhance the growth of our economy, increase innovation and entrepreneurship, and will also increase collaboration.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. We know how important India is for Canada, and it will be up to the Conservatives to repair the harm done by the Liberal government. With respect to the convicted terrorist who attended an event, a media representative who was at the briefing broke his silence yesterday. He confirmed that the media received information that they could not protect. Why? Mr. Speaker, if the opposition members understood how important what is happening between India and Canada, one would think that the Leader of the Opposition would accept the confidential classified briefing that we have offered in order that he have all the information he needs on what is happening between our two countries. However, the members opposite do not want to know the facts. They do not want to know what's really happening. They are simply playing politics. That was what Stephen Harper did, and it's so disappointing to see that that's still what the Conservatives are doing.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Public Safety Minister claimed that no classified information was shared with the media by the National Security Advisor regarding the presence of a convicted terrorist on the Prime Minister's trip to India. He then said that all the information was already reported in the media. Now, senior trusted journalists who were on that conference call with the National Security Advisor say otherwise. They say they were specifically told that they could not report some things. So why won't the Prime Minister provide the same briefing to members of Parliament that he's already given to the media?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what Canadians can't understand is that the member opposite, the Leader of the official opposition, has been given the opportunity to receive a full classified briefing on all aspects of this issue and chooses not to understand the truth. Now, for 10 years, Stephen Harper and his gang muzzled scientists, ignored facts, ignored the truth. 2.5 years later, it's clear the Conservatives haven't learned their lesson. They'd rather not hear the truth if it jars against their political...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Order.
We have invited the Prime Minister to unmuzzle the National Security Advisor and tell the truth to Parliament. He's the one that is refusing to come clean. Of course, this isn't the only issue that the Prime Minister has trouble coming clean with. We've only learned recently about the nature of the illegal gift that he received during his illegal private island vacation. But the Trudeau report makes it clear that multiple gifts were exchanged. So can the Prime Minister explain exactly what those other illegal gifts were, who received them, and why he chose to hide this from Canadians for so long?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said many times, we work with the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, answered all her questions. She put forward a report which we accepted, full recommendations which we implemented. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner has dealt with. What is interesting, Mr. Speaker, is this member, the Leader of the Opposition, continues to lay on the personal attacks, even though he committed last weekend in a newspaper article interview that he would focus on policy, not on personal attacks.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les Basques. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the government of Quebec had the courage to act. The Quebec sales tax will apply to foreign digital platforms as well as domestic platforms. On the other side of the Atlantic, the European Union has also chosen to make Netflix pay its fair share. For more than 6 months, there has been a consensus. That is that the government must modernize its legislation and put everyone on the same footing. It's common sense, Mr. Speaker. Will this government stop saying that it is impossible to act and finally require that web giants pay their fair share? Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, the NDP is claiming that it would be Netflix and the web giants that would pay those new taxes. However, it's taxpayers that would pay these taxes. And we, on this side of the House, we committed to not increasing taxes on taxpayers who were already paying for digital subscriptions and for their internet. If the Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert wants to stay in the House, he has to quieten down. The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les Basques. What's it going to take to understand that the sales tax should apply to everyone equally and fairly? The budget implementation bill for 2018 was tabled yesterday, and now we have this 547 mammoth of a bill, which means that the Liberals broke their promise to end omnibus bills. Worse still, there is very little that will have a significant impact on equity and equality. It is clear that this government lacks the courage to implement pay equity, parental leave, or reviewing the management of Indigenous lands. Why are the Liberals being so silent on such crucial issues? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, with Budget 2018, we are improving competitiveness, equality, sustainability, and fairness in Canada. Our budget plan will continue to invest in strengthening the middle class. It is providing a better foundation for the future for our children. We are reducing the salary gap. We are increasing the sharing of parental duties, and we are coming forward with better innovations and initiatives for entrepreneurship. We are continuing towards equality. This is a budget that Canadians can be proud of.
You haven't read your own bill. The Liberals' Budget Implementation Act betrays all women who believe the so-called gender budget would make our lives more fair. In spite of all the airtime this government has given to legislating equal pay for work of equal value, yesterday's budget bill does nothing. Liberals promised pay equity 40 years ago, and again in 2016, and again last month. Prime Minister, wake up. It's 2018. When will the Liberals legislate pay equity?
Yeah. I'm sure the Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith knows that, of course, members are to direct their questions and comments to the chair. And so we'll assume that was through me, I guess, is what my colleague over here is suggesting. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that when we invest in women, we strengthen our economy. Budget 2018 takes our commitment to gender equality even further by investing in women entrepreneurs and women in skilled trades, by launching a new parental sharing benefit, by introducing historic, proactive pay equity legislation. While the Conservatives want to bring us back to the Harper Conservative days of doing nothing to support women across Canada, we're ensuring that women have the tools and support they need to fully thrive in Canada's economy today and tomorrow.
Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian women deserve far more than those hollow talking points. The Prime Minister promised to finally deliver on pay equity. The budget bill reveals another broken promise. The Prime Minister promised to deliver enhanced parental leave. The budget bill shows another broken promise. And the Prime Minister implied prior to the budget that he...
I think the Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby knows that I've asked members not to engage in chanting. It's appropriate. Member poses his question, and I'll ask him to carry on with his question and present it here in the House.
And the Prime Minister implied prior to the budget that he'd bring in pharmacare. Another broken promise. So why doesn't the Prime Minister stop breaking promises?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we keep our promises. We move forward. The very first thing we did in lowering taxes for the middle class and raising them on the wealthiest 1%, which members across the aisle, Conservative and NDP, voted against. We then brought in a Canada Child Benefit. It gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families and lifts hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty. In this most recent budget, we're moving forward and recognizing that equity is also an economic benefit. And by folding more women into the workforce, by giving them opportunities, we are growing the economy for everyone.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about treating women with respect. On March 26th, in response to the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party, the Minister of Finance referred to her as, and I quote, a Neanderthal. Our Deputy Leader pointed out his own personal hypocrisy supporting women, and the Finance Minister answered by calling her a Neanderthal. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and order his Finance Minister to apologize?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, I'm happy to say that I think that all members in this House should treat each other with respect at all times. But with Budget 2018, we're taking the next steps towards building an equal, competitive, sustainable and fair Canada, where science, curiosity and innovation spur economic growth. Our strong fiscal plans mean that we can continue to invest in ways that will strengthen and grow the middle class and lay a more solid foundation for our children's future. By addressing the gender wage gap, supporting equal parenting, tackling gender-based violence and sexual harassment,
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister can do more than just hope people talk to each other with respect. He can order his Finance Minister to apologize for his insulting and sexist remarks. This Finance Minister didn't like being challenged by a strong Conservative woman, and he reacted by using sexist language and insulting terms. Will he do the right thing and go beyond just hoping, Mr. Speaker, and order his Finance Minister to apologize for his embarrassing behavior?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will take no lessons from the members opposite when it comes to respecting women. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, given that 2.5 years ago, Canada made historic gains and made news around the world by moving forward for the first time with a gender-balanced cabinet. However, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite, Leader of the Official Opposition, refuses to commit to continuing this world-leading practice, won't commit to appointing as many women as men in some eventual cabinet. Mr. Speaker, that's not right.
We'll have some order. You know, I've heard the Easter Bunny also knows who's naughty and who's nice. We had better behave ourselves here. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I can assure the Prime Minister that the Cabinet for the Government of Canada after the 2019 election will have plenty of strong conservative women in it. Now, yes, just the other day, a Conservative Member of Parliament asked the Minister of the Environment a very simple question. Of course, you may be disappointed to learn, Mr. Speaker, didn't get an answer. So I'll ask the Prime Minister, can he tell this House exactly how much his $50 per tonne carbon tax will reduce greenhouse emissions by?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for the first time in Canada's history, we have an actual plan to reach our carbon reduction targets. And they want to talk about what it'll cost. I prefer to think about what it will cost if we don't reduce our carbon emissions, if we don't recognize that protecting the environment and growing the economy go together. For 10 years, Stephen Harper blocked any movement on the environment and therefore couldn't get it done on the economy. We know, Canadians know, that doing it together, economy and environment, is the only way forward, and that's what we're doing.
I'm having great trouble hearing the answers. I'd ask members to listen. Whether they like the answers or not, or the questions, they have to listen, and I need to hear them, because I need to know if someone breaks one of the rules, the standing orders, of course. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Order.
This is the worst logic I've ever seen coming out of this Liberal government. They don't know if their plan will be effective at all. They can't tell Canadians how much greenhouse gases will be reduced by their carbon tax, but then they say, but we can't afford not to do it, Mr. Speaker. What he's telling us is that we're all going to have to pay more for our home heating, for our fuel for our cars, to bring our kids to work, to school, to travel to work, to buy groceries, but they have no idea if it will actually work. Mr. Speaker, can he please tell the House exactly how much carbon emissions will be reduced by his carbon tax?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, scientists and economists around the world have recognized that putting a price on carbon pollution is the best way to move forward, to reduce our carbon emissions and innovate to grow the economy. The folks on the other side of the aisle didn't understand that when they were in power for 10 years, and they're doubling down on their incomprehension of something that Canadians know, that the only way to build a strong economy for the future is by protecting the environment at the same time. Their willful blindness and ignorance on this is hurt.
Order. I'm hearing way too much. I've heard very often today from my neighbor for Battle River Crowfoot, who hasn't had the floor. And he should know that the time to speak is when a member has the floor, but he doesn't have it right now.
Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, all senators and members voted unanimously to pass Bill C-452 to tackle exploitation and trafficking in persons. Even the Prime Minister and all the Liberal members of Parliament voted for this bill. All that's lacking now is the Prime Minister's signature. Mr. Speaker, life is all about priorities. Because of the Prime Minister's inaction, life has been hell for thousands of young girls and their family for nearly 3 years. When will he understand how urgent it is to sign off on this bill? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the situation that these young girls and families face throughout Canada, especially in Quebec, as we've seen in the news, is a plague, and it's terrible, and we must do everything that we can to combat exploitation and to protect young girls and young boys as well. We must do more. Unfortunately, the bill, as was drafted, had some provisions that did not comply with the Charter, but we are going to do everything we can to protect young women in the country. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, all MPs, regardless of political stripe, voted in favor of this bill. And here's what one mother said at the time. Ms. Obey, 1 year ago, said directly to the Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, if Bill C-452 had existed 2 years ago, I wouldn't be where I am today with my daughter. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious, serious issue. There are thousands of other young girls in Quebec and throughout Canada who are caught in this awful trafficking system. What is the Prime Minister waiting for to sign off on this bill? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a plague that affects people throughout the country, and we take it extremely seriously. That is why we are working with the Minister of the Status of Women and the Minister of Justice to find the best tools to help us reduce this and eliminate this horrible plague, which is trafficking in persons and exploitation. We know that we must do more, and we will do more, but we are going to do it within our Constitution, and we won't take anti-constitutional steps.
Mr. Speaker, official language minority communities across our country, including on the prairies, have been waiting for the government to deliver on its commitments for almost 3 years. Les belles paroles.
Mr. Speaker, hollow words are not sufficient. Today, the government is trying to give the impression that the amount being invested is more than it actually is. Is the Minister of Heritage using these numbers to hide the fact that Budget 2018 numbers represent actually less than what was being called for by the communities? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our official languages are at the very heart of our Canadian identity, and we are proud to make historic investments in official languages. More than $500 million for an action plan for communities. Mr. Speaker, after 10 years under the Conservatives, we are now taking concrete steps. We are going to strengthen our communities, increase access to services, and promote a bilingual Canada. We listen to communities, and our announcement is proof of that. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, today the Prime Minister and the Minister of Heritage finally unveiled the Official Languages Action Plan. Even though it wasn't the amount hoped for by communities, the action plan does promise a highly anticipated reinvestment throughout the country. The government is announcing more action for immigration and early childhood, which are essential areas for the vitality of our communities. However, we're disappointed by the absence of leadership and governance. How can we prevent the many violations of the Official Languages Act if we do not have responsibility and leadership within the Liberal government? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, official languages and the protection of minority language communities throughout our country are at the heart of who we are as Liberals and who we are as a government. We are going to continue to listen to these communities and work with them, and that's why we are so proud of these historic investments we're making in official languages and that we announced today. And a very important part of that is more transparency and more accountability for those funds, so people will really know how we are delivering for official languages throughout the country.
Mr. Speaker, in 2015, after the Member of Parliament for Brampton East was elected, he started to accept contracts from various people within his constituency. Mr. Speaker, ironically, the President and his boss was invited along on this disastrous trip to India that the Prime Minister and his entourage undertook. Now, Mr. Speaker, for me, that poses some significant questions with respect to conflicts of interest. Will the Prime Minister tell us who invited Mr. Yanelmez and who approved that invitation?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're proud to be working to create more opportunities for the Canadian middle class and people working hard to join it. Events on these trips are about strengthening ties and bringing people together, and to make these events as accessible as possible for those who want to participate. MPs and business organizations will often invite community and business leaders to join. These exchanges increase Canada's standing in the global community, and we're going to continue to do just that.
The Honourable Member for Milton.
Speaker, it's not about whether or not you invite businesses along. It's about whether or not the public can have the trust in the integrity of the members of Parliament inviting these businesses along. And where the member has gone woefully wrong, and I must assume he offered the invitation since the Prime Minister isn't saying anything different, he's a lawyer, he would have read his code of conduct, and he would know that if there was a gray area as to whether or not he was furthering the private interests of his contracted employer, then he should seek an opinion of the Ethics Commissioner. Did he seek an opinion of the Ethics Commissioner before he invited his boss to rub elbows with the Prime Minister and the Minister?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the members opposite are stuck in the politics of innuendo and insinuation instead of working with us to make progress on the issues that matter most to Canadians. Unlike Stephen Harper's Conservatives, we promise Canadians to be open and accessible, and that's exactly what we're doing. But engaging countries abroad isn't about our government, it's about creating opportunities for Canadians. That's why we're proud that hundreds of Canadian business and community leaders have joined us in strengthening Canadian ties abroad, and we'll continue to help them do that.
Order. Order. I want to remind members that quiet does not indicate consent or agreement. And in fact, it was very quiet when the member for Milton posed her question. But I don't see why it couldn't be quiet during the response. Whether members agree or not, it does not indicate agreement.
The honourable member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, L'Orléans-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, the owner of a construction company linked to the member for Brampton East was invited on the Prime Minister's trip to India, and it doesn't end there. The media report that this member earned income from this business, and they'd invited the owner without the authorization of the Ethics Commissioner. The Prime Minister's office says that it's the member for Brampton East that invited his business affiliate to India, but the member denies this. Who's telling the truth? Is this going to be yet another investigation of the Ethics Commissioner? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's always disappointing to see how the opposition still cannot recognize the importance of the relationship between Canada and India. We have a growing economy in India, and it provides many opportunities to strengthen Canada's middle class. We secured more than $1 billion in contracts, which will lead to the creation of more than 5,000 high-quality jobs for Canadians. These investments will enhance the growth of the Canadian economy, enhance innovation and entrepreneurship, and which will increase collaboration between the countries. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, our ethics code says a member shall not act in any way to further his or her private interests or to improperly further another person's or entity's private interests. The Liberal member from Brampton East has admitted that he helped his business affiliate gain high-level access to the Prime Minister and other key cabinet ministers during the Prime Minister's trip to India. Will the Prime Minister now refer this case to the Ethics Commissioner, or do we have to?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a country, we're proud to engage with friends and allies abroad in an effort to create more opportunities for the Canadian middle class and those working hard to join it. These events on these trips are about strengthening ties and bringing people together, and Canada benefits when hundreds of community and business leaders are able to join. To make these events as accessible as possible, many MPs arrange invites for people who request them, and even more are made available through organizations like the Canada-India Business Council.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives refuse to deliver on our Kyoto commitments. The Liberals have abandoned our Copenhagen commitments for 2020. The Environment Commissioner reported the Liberals' climate change measures will be insufficient to comply with the deeper commitments for 2030. The Minister says, don't worry, yet offers no detailed accounting on the reductions from her proposed measures. When will she establish measurable interim reduction targets and an independent entity to audit, verify, and publicly report as required under the Paris Agreement?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the reports of the Environment Commissioner are very important to highlight the status of issues and to highlight issues that require attention. We welcome this report. However, let us be clear about what it said. She said that the Pan-Canadian framework represents significant progress and looks forward to seeing its implementation. She also said that this was one of the best climate plans that Canada has ever had. We agree. We have a plan to achieve our commitments, and we're committed to doing so.
The honourable member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, apart from the Liberals, no one seems to believe that the measures put in place will help fight climate change. Yesterday, the Commissioner openly criticized the government's lack of action. Last fall, the OECD and the UN urged Ottawa to pick up the pace to honour its commitments. Even the most recent report from the Department of the Environment submitted to the UN indicated that the Liberal government would be missing its target by 60 megatons. When will the Liberals stop being like ostriches and pull their head out of the sand and take some action? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, it would be good for once if the members opposite read the report by the Commissioner in full. She said that this represented considerable progress and was delighted with its implementation, and she also mentioned that it was one of the best climate plans that Canada has ever had. We share that view. We have a long-term plan to honour our commitments, and we are going to fulfill them.
Glengarry Prescott-Russell.
Mr. Speaker, I was in attendance when the Minister and the Prime Minister announced the new action plan for official languages. And I'm hearing positive reactions from my constituents. According to them, our plan is based on comments and their needs, and they finally got a plan that meets their expectations. After 10 years of Conservative government inaction on official languages, can the Prime Minister tell me how this plan will help Francophone communities in my riding and official language communities in minority situation across the country?
Prime Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by thanking the member for Glengarry Prescott-Russell for his question and for the work he does for his constituents. Today we announced the most significant budget in 15 years, close to $500 million for an action plan for communities. Following 10 years of underfunding by the Conservatives, we are taking meaningful action. We are investing in early childhood development, community and educational services, in education in the language of one's choice, and in Francophone education.
Louis Saint-Laurent.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's coming up to Easter. And it's important to talk about the sense of humor, because the Liberals said they're keeping their promises, and that's not quite true. They are talked about returning to a balanced budget, but that's not true, and it's hiding things. Now, there's some $18 billion, and 7 of it is being hidden, and they're not disclosing the information. Why is the government hiding this from Canadians? Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, the previous Conservative government added some $150 billion to the national debt without delivering economic growth that Canadians expected. Over the past 2.5 years, we have invested in Canadians, in the middle class, in our communities, and we've shown the best growth rate in the G7 last year. We created more than 600,000 jobs and are on a yearly basis reducing our debt compared to our GDP. So we are focusing on growth, and we are responsible. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, history will acknowledge it is under the Liberal government that Canadians ended up with a $1 trillion deficit, and that's unacceptable. But this brings me back to my question of this hidden amount. How is it that the government, with this $18 billion, which is far higher than what they announced, how is it that there's a $7 billion amount that's being hidden and carved off? Why aren't they telling Canadians about it? Why is this $7 billion being hidden from Canadians? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to have a question on the economy, finally, from the members opposite, because they normally prefer to launch into personal attacks instead of talking about the economy. So let's talk about it. Under the Harper government, they added $150 billion to our national debt. Nor did they create economic growth. Over the past 2.5 years, we've invested in Canadians, we've cut taxes for the middle class, we've increased them for the wealthiest 1%, and we have delivered the best growth rate in the G7. Last year, we've also created 600,000 jobs.
In the last election, the Prime Minister put his hand on his heart and pleaded with people to believe he would not raise taxes on the middle class. Now, middle-class Canadians, 80% of them are paying higher income tax. And yesterday, at the government's budget briefing, we learned that there will also be a new 11 cent a litre Liberal tax on gas. Will the Prime Minister announce today that all middle-class Canadians will be exempt from paying his new 11 cent a litre gas tax?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, The Conservatives focused on a plan that helped and gave benefits to the wealthiest while asking the middle class to pay more and not delivering in the kind of growth and jobs that Canadians earn. Quite frankly, they had the worst rate on growth of any Prime Minister since R.B. Bennett in the depths of the Great Depression. Mr. Speaker, in 2.5 years, we've turned that around. We've put more money in the pockets of the middle class and those working hard to join it. We've lowered taxes for the middle class and raised them on the...
It's over. The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the question was whether he would exempt middle-class taxpayers from his 11-cent a litre tax on gas. It is a disproportionately high expense for middle and low-income people, and he is going to make it even higher. So I'll ask him a different question because he evaded the last one. I asked an official yesterday, how much will the carbon tax cost the average middle-class family? And I quote, I don't have that information is something I can't share with you at this time. Can the Prime Minister share that information with Canadians at this time?
Well, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand that the way to grow the economy is by protecting the environment at the same time. And the best way to reduce our carbon emissions, the world agrees, is to bring in a price on carbon pollution. That is exactly what we are doing. And what we are seeing, Mr. Speaker, as we move forward on that, is we are also creating innovation and growth and green benefits across this country as new jobs are created, as greater opportunities are created. The previous government didn't understand that, and still today, they don't understand the economy and the environment.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, the alarm bells are ringing in the Office of the Minister of Health, but it's as if she's the only one not hearing it. The Public Health Agency of Canada has just published data showing that there were more than 4,000 deaths linked to opioids in 2017, a 40% increase. At the same time, in Hochelaga, the project called Dope Allies is in jeopardy because the agency continues to refuse its funding. How many deaths will have to occur before the Prime Minister takes action? The Honourable Prime Minister, we are facing a national health crisis in this country, and our government is very concerned with the tragic consequences. I am profoundly saddened by the information disclosed yesterday, and in Budget 2018 we have some $231 million for the implementation of additional measures to deal with the opioid crisis. We will continue to put forth solutions based on this data in order to save lives and to turn this trend around.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those words, while the death toll mounts. Opioid overdoses are now claiming more lives than motor vehicle accidents and homicides combined. Wow. 2017 was the worst year on record, with over 4,000 lives lost, 40% more than 2016. This escalating tragedy is fueled by a tainted, illicit drug supply, and the greatest barrier to addressing it is the harm caused by the criminalization of substance use. Mr. Speaker, how does this government expect to help vulnerable people suffering from addiction when it continues to treat them as criminals?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past months I've had the opportunity to get out on the front lines to talk to first responders, talk to social workers, talk to people who are dealing with the tragedy of this epidemic. I've talked to countless families who've lost loved ones. This is an epidemic across this country that we are taking very seriously. Building on our actions to date, through Budget 2018, we're investing over $231 million for additional measures to help address the opioid crisis, including $150 million for emergency treatment funding for provinces and territories. We will continue to work to bring forward evidence-based...
The member for Caribou Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was in Grand Bank, Newfoundland, and I met a gentleman named Edgar. Now, Edgar has worked at the surf clam processing plant for years, but the minister's callous political decision to award a lucrative government quota to his Liberal friends and family has shaken Edgar's life. He's now at risk of losing his job. He doesn't want EI, he wants to work. What does the Prime Minister have to say to Edgar's family and all of the others put out of work because of his minister's corrupt process?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative habit of pitting Canadians against Indigenous Canadians is quite frankly disgusting. Our decision to increase Indigenous participation in fishing is based on our government's commitment to developing a renewed relationship between Canada and Indigenous peoples. Enhancing access to the Arctic surf clam fishery broadens the distribution of benefits from this public resource and is a powerful step towards reconciliation. This will significantly enhance Indigenous participation in the offshore fishery in Atlantic Canada and Quebec and allow the benefits of this lucrative fishery to flow to more Canadians.
Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. A group of Liberal family members that had no boat, they weren't even incorporated until after the announcement was made. They didn't have any First Nation partners. As a matter of fact, their bid had multiple placeholders in place. And they still secured a lucrative government quota worth hundreds of millions of dollars without meeting critical bid criteria. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing, restart the process, and ensure his minister is recused from it so we can have an honest outcome?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on March 8, 2018, Chief Aaron Salk issued a statement identifying the partners comprising the Five Nations Clam Company. They are Elsie Potog First Nation in New Brunswick, Potolek First Nation in Nova Scotia, Abegwait First Nation in Prince Edward Island, Innu First Nation of Nutashkan in Quebec, and Southern Inuit of Nunatukavut through its commercial fisheries entity NDC Fisheries Limited in Newfoundland and Labrador. This is an opportunity to advance reconciliation, Mr. Speaker, that matters to this government and to most Canadians.
Right thing to do.
Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives support Canadians' right to peaceful assembly, but the BC Supreme Court said protesters must just be 5 meters away from worksite entrances and must not block workers or equipment at the Trans Mountain expansion. The Prime Minister remains MIA on the approved project altogether, and he's silent about violence at the construction site. Last week, 173 protesters were arrested for breaking the ruling. One protester even shoved a police officer to the ground, causing a knee injury. Another was kicked in the head. Does the Prime Minister condemn this violence?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government supports every Canadian's right to peaceful protest and to have their voices heard. We live in a country where different voices can be heard in a peaceful way. We have taken a decision on this project that is in the national interest, and we are committed to seeing this pipeline built, and we expect all protesters to act within the law.
The member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was in Sault Ste. Marie, Regina, Saguenay-Lac, Saint Jean, and Hamilton as part of the very successful cross-country tour of aluminum and steel facilities. These industries are part of a fair, balanced, integrated trade system with the United States. U.S. tariffs are unacceptable, and the Prime Minister acted quickly and forcefully through concrete actions to ensure the tariff would not proceed. Can the Prime Minister update this House about what action the government is taking to further strengthen the steel industry and aluminum industries in this great country? Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member from the Sioux for his question, for his hard work, both as Steel Caucus co-chair, for his hard work. Earlier this month, I stood with Liberal members and workers in Saguenay, Lac Saint Jean, Hamilton, Sault Ste. Marie, and Saskatoon to defend this vital industry from unfair steel and aluminum tariffs. We announced measures to further strengthen our enforcement regime against unfairly cheap foreign steel. Liberal MPs will continue to fight for our aluminum and steel workers who are such an important part of their communities and Canada's economy.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, last January, the Prime Minister paraded through Quebec and made some promises with empty pockets. But the Lévis shipyard's workers are not fools, and they said, we know the government has everything it needs to proceed. What seems to be missing is real political will. The HoC is ready to help the Coast Guard, to help with the ports. What is the Prime Minister waiting for? Why doesn't he take action and put the Davie shipyard workers back to work to help the Coast Guard? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Negotiations are currently underway for the acquisition of icebreakers. We are investing in the Coast Guard so that it can offer the vital services Canadians need while developing our economy and creating jobs. We are currently holding active discussions with the Davie Shipyard regarding an interim capability for icebreakers. We know that these workers do excellent work. Look what they did with the Asterix. Contrary to the Conservatives who eliminated funds, we will ensure that the Coast Guard has the resources it needs.
Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, so help me out here. The member for Brampton East gets himself elected and then goes into business with a local company. Now, I know that's pretty unusual, but at least we have some kind of rules. But then he helps his friend get access to the Prime Minister and senior cabinet ministers during the notorious India trip. The reason we have a conflict of interest code is so that backbenchers don't start selling access to the highest office in the land, like some kind of huckster peddling Melvin Elvis paintings. So doesn't the Prime Minister understand that? Or does he think that the rules for his friends don't count?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are proud we're working to create more opportunities for the Canadian middle class and those working hard to join it. Events on these trips are about strengthening ties and bringing people together, and to make these events as accessible as possible for those who want to participate. MPs and business organizations will often invite community and business leaders to join. These exchanges increase Canada's standing in the global community, and we're going to continue to do just that.
The Honourable Member for St. John Rothsay.
St. John Rothsay is a perfect example of a place where we have local businesses that are thriving and creating more well-paying jobs due to substantial investments made in them by the federal government through the Regional Development Agency, HoC. However, due to the political stunt pulled by the Conservatives last week, during which they voted against investing in our region, we could have lost crucial funding for HoC and small and medium-sized businesses in my riding. Would the Prime Minister please share what we stood up for when the Conservatives pulled political stunts?
Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member for his advocacy and activism on behalf of his constituents in St. John Rothsay. Regional economic development agencies help Canadians seize new economic opportunities in all regions of the country. But last week, Conservatives actually voted against funding for Western economic diversification, ACOA, and CanNor. Thankfully, Liberals voted to protect the West, the Atlantic, and the North from the Conservatives' attempt to cut their funding. We also announced $511 million.
We're going to have another question from this side, or we're going to have quiet? Let's have some quiet. Order. The member for Markham Unionville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Afghan Sikh refugees have been sitting in transit in India for the last 2 years, hoping to come to Canada, escaping persecution and war. The Prime Minister has received letters from the Sikh community leaders asking him to intervene, but so far there has been only silence. Why doesn't the Prime Minister have the decency to at least respond to their letters? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am proud of the deep connection between Canada and India and our diaspora, and particularly of the strong links we have with the Sikh community here in Canada, in India, and around the world. We will continue to work closely with members of the Sikh community, whether they be in Afghanistan or elsewhere, to make sure that we are moving forward in a way that respects their rights and gives them opportunities. This is something that we are very focused on, Mr. Speaker, and will continue to work hard on.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-452 was adopted unanimously and received royal assent in June 2015. Consecutive sentences, reversal of the burden of proof, strong, real action against procuring. But the Liberals backed down and tabled Bill C-38, a truncated version of C-452, which is been shelved since 2017, February 2017. It hasn't even been debated. Was the Prime Minister serious about wanting to act? Or is it simply one of his poor performances? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, parts of that bill were unconstitutional, and we will take action to protect young women and girls across the country where they are the most vulnerable. We are fighting procuring. We will counter human trafficking and do so within our Constitution, and we will take action, Mr. Speaker.
As a point of order arising out of question period.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since I was cut off, if you seek it, I hope you'll find unanimous consent for the Prime Minister to answer the following question. Since they're missing, will the Prime Minister put pay equity and enhanced parental leave into the Budget Bill C-74?
The Honourable Member have unanimous consent of the House. There is no unanimous consent. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord has a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I think that you will find unanimous consent in this House for the following motion: that, notwithstanding any section of the standing orders or usual practice of this House, Bill C-38, an act to amend the Criminal Code regarding human trafficking and exploitation, be deemed read a second time, sent to the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, deemed reviewed by the Standing Committee of Justice and Human Rights,